Aetherion was an entry in the 2011 RMN Summer Games Competition, and it was created in a month. The theme of the competition was surrealism, but I'm not entirely sure how the story of Aetherion meets that theme. This isn't to say anything bad about the game itself, but the game feels very by the book in its approach, and grounds itself so thoroughly that the world of Aetherion doesn't feel so much surreal as it does predictable. Or maybe that's because the nature of the enemies in this game feel comparable to Death Evan from Breath of Fire 2. Story-wise, the game is about a new student at the Arc Institute, which trains young men and women to be elite watchers that protect the populace from attacks by the Wraith. The Wraith exists in another realm known as the Aetherion, which is created through the collective unconscious of humans living on the world. As such, the Wraith basically represent the fear and other negative human emotions. Of course, this new student is quickly swept into a dangerous situation beyond his control, and arguably his ability to understand, that involves three former friends that become divided over their past. And while a lot of the events that unfold are pretty predictable once you understand the nature of the characters and their motivations, it manages to counterbalance itself by being well written and featuring a solid cast of characters. Aetherion features an active time battle system, which now places me in a position to admit my bias. I have and probably will always hate active time battle systems. To me, they just feel like a half-hearted attempt at a real-time combat system and end up divorcing themselves from the slightly more strategic aspects of a turn-based combat system. And the main reason they have less of a strategic edge is that a system like this often forces the player to button mash rather quickly, since they don't have time to really work through a menu and carefully select a target. In that sense, they do have the edge in terms of intensity and speed, but that edge pales in comparison to the edge that a true turn-based or real-time battle system has to offer, and that edge is either those systems gives the player a stronger sense of control during an encounter, in my opinion. As such, I'm largely rescinding myself from judging the game in this area. Outside of the sheer speed and intensity of combat in this game, another factor to keep in mind is that your moveset in this game is limited to 3 attacks and 3 support skills. But as you level up, you gain additional skills that can be switched in and out from the menu. So it does behoove you to an extent to look through your options before a boss battle in order to give yourself as much of an advantage as possible. Also bear in mind that each of the skills is level specific, and that you need to equip a level 1, 2, and 3 skill to your character. Outside of combat, the game is rather standard in terms of its options. You can raise or lower the difficulty depending on your needs, as well as switch the default control layout from VX to XP, but either option will basically be the same thing, only the Z key will be switched around for the C key in the XP option. Visually speaking, the game features some interesting enemies and well-designed areas. About the only real screw-up is one of the areas in the Aetherion looks like it should be an impassable wall, but you can simply walk through it. Or maybe that's there to add a surreal effect, but it just comes across like a programming mistake in my opinion if it was intentional. Sound-wise, the game offers tracks outside of the usual fare provided by RPG Maker VX. This is a definite plus since it improves the game's presentation a bit and allows it to stand out from the rest of the crowd in an area that is usually defined by sticking to what comes with the program. Aetherion is a well-constructed game with a combat system that I'm not particularly fond of. But the overall short length of the game and its characters are enough to make me overlook my usual issues with such a combat system. If I had one suggestion for improving the game from my perspective, it'd be to add an option to enable a passive mode with the combat system. But if you're fond of active time battle systems, then this game is definitely worth checking out if you have spare time.